Golden Glue talk about pretty much what we wanted to start off with, and that was the pick and ban phase. And you know, we were talking about it, LoL Pro basically went all late game, and as we just saw Golden Glue say, we went early game, and basically it worked out. Yeah, it really did. When you look at LoL Pro's composition, they really had a collection of champions that needed a lot of time to scale. Nidalee needs items. It's a mid-game power spike. Jax, late game. Kog'Maw, late game. But there was not enough protection. Lee Sin's got one kickback. Morgana can maybe stun some people. And whenever you've got these late scaling champions, you need heal, you need protection, like a Thresh, like a Zarya, even like a Nami, just to disengage and buy time for your team to actually get ahead. All of the champions on the side of Coast, early game, lots of damage, and they could dash and dive. Renekton, Elise, LeBlanc, they could move all over the map, and they did. And speaking about that damage, of course, we harped on about Golden Glue, how he didn't really have any impact in the start of the game. In game one, absolutely had impact in this game, played a fantastic LeBlanc, probably the best we've seen Golden Glue play. Yeah, that is actually, in my mind, the strongest performance you've seen him play, and that's taking into account his games in the LCS. One of the highlights we want to pull up onto your screen right now is just how Coast were forcing objectives very early on. Their composition needed to get objectives, needed to get ahead, and needed to stay ahead. Keep your eyes on how quickly Hood Stomp is going to get blown up in a moment or two. As we roll this clip out, you can see that Golden Glue is already roaming. He's coming in from the sideline, it's low, sorry, and he's going to jump in, get a lot of damage down. The problem that Coast had is they overcommitted several times for these objectives. And even though they're trading somewhat evenly, 1 for 1, 1 for 2 in certain fights, their team comp had to make those plays. Their team comp had to get the towers and had to push. If they had been maybe a little more aware of the response from opponents, they could have got out cleaner. But nevertheless, they got the tower, they got the kills, and they kept doing that for the rest of the game. And that was also one of the problems LoL Pro had, is they overcommitted a few too many times, which is where they got caught out, really. Yeah, it is. And this is actually the second replay that we're going to pull up onto your screen. LoL Pro were under pressure. They needed to make plays, or they felt like they needed to pull themselves back in the game. If you roll this clip out, what you're really going to see is just how little protection LoL Pro has for their carries. LoL gets forced away. You'll notice that Lod is on the full retreat. Hood Stomp in a moment or two. He's on retreat, but there's nothing to protect them. There's nothing to stop the members of Coast just chasing them down. And Coast are going to run literally halfway across the map and continue putting pressure. Lod's going to get chased around from the side. Hood Stomp gets blown up. And this is the problem that LoL Pro had in their team comp. No protection for the carries, and of course, they fell behind early, which allowed Coast to make these plays happen. And just so much chase for Coast. So Coast are victorious. Another 2-0 for the Challenger Series. What do we see going forward? Are they going to continue to go through? Obviously, they're going to be trying to challenge the LCS teams eventually in the next split. Something that we kept talking about during this series was just how the individual ability was actually very high. There were some really good moments from a lot of players involved. Sheep got his strongest champion in Thresh and landed some phenomenal hooks. There is still some work that can be done if these teams want to challenge the LCS squads, but it's definitely very exciting. First Challenger Series of summer locked in, and we'll see who's going to go to the playoffs later in the year. Yeah, some definite skill play on show there. That, of course, wraps up the North American Challenger Finals. Congratulations again to Team Coast for taking the series in 2 wins.